Have you ever felt like you're alive but not really living? We've all had moments like that, times when loss, heartbreak, or some life-shattering event makes everything crumble. Days when you wake up but can't find a reason to keep going. When your faith in yourself fades and you start wondering if you still matter at all. But here's the strange thing. Sometimes in what feels like the darkest moment, an unexpected meeting, an outstretched hand, or a simple sentence can change the entire story of your life. And today, I want to share with you one such journey, the story of Amelia, a woman who thought she had lost everything, until she found a family she chose for herself. A light rain tapped steadily against the cafe's glass window frame, tracing long, misty streaks, as if blurring the line between inside and outside. Inside, soft golden light bathed the wooden tables, and the aroma of freshly roasted coffee mingled with the scent of just-baked pastries. In a corner by the window, Amelia Blake sat quietly. Her golden hair, slightly tousled from the wind and damp from the rain, fell loosely over her shoulders. She wore a navy long-sleeved sweater, the cuffs pulled almost over her hands as if wrapping herself in an invisible layer of protection. In front of her sat a small cake covered in white frosting, decorated with a few pastel flowers. No candles, no guests, no birthday wishes. Just her and the cake. The wheelchair beneath the table was a quiet reminder of what she had lost. The lower half of her body had been paralyzed since a mountain climbing accident 2 years ago. Today was her 27th birthday. If her mother were still alive, they might have been sitting at this very table eating cake and laughing together. But last winter, a sudden stroke had taken her away. Her father was on the other side of the world wearing suits and negotiating million-dollar deals. Amelia wasn't expecting anyone to show up. She didn't want to draw attention either. But then a small, clear voice piped up right beside her table. "Miss, is it your birthday today? Can we sing for you?" She looked up and found herself staring into the wide, round eyes of a little girl in a yellow rain hat, clutching a drawing of a cat wearing a birthday hat. Behind her, a man stood frozen, clearly caught off guard by the moment. He stepped forward and gently placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "Ava, you shouldn't bother people." The girl looked up at her father, brows slightly furrowed. But no one should be alone on their birthday. Amelia smiled faintly, and before the man could lead his daughter away, she said, "Why don't you both join me?" Ava's eyes lit up. Without waiting for another invitation, she pulled a chair right up to Amelia's table. The man, most likely her father, hesitated for a beat before sitting down across from them, giving a small nod in place of a greeting. Ava stared intently at the cake. "You forgot to light the candles." Amelia smiled. "Maybe I did forget." "That's okay. You can still sing," Ava replied with the confidence of someone who had just solved a very important problem. And so they sang. Ava led the tune, her voice high and full of energy, sometimes straying off beat, but never losing heart. Her father's warm baritone joined in, steady and gentle. Amelia sat in silence, listening, and without meaning to, felt her heartbeat shift. It wasn't surprise she felt, but a strange warmth seeping into the cold, empty space she'd been guarding for so many months. When the final note faded, Amelia bowed her head and covered her mouth with her hand. Tears welled up hot and uninvited. They weren't just from sadness, but from the sting of being touched by a kindness so simple and sharp it almost hurt. "Are you okay?" Ava tilted her head, her wide eyes mixing curiosity with concern. Amelia nodded quickly, brushing at her eyes. "I'm okay, and this is the best part of my day." Ava grinned as if she'd just been awarded a medal. Her father gave a small nod, too, his gaze warm without a trace of pity. They sat for a few more minutes in quiet, just 3 strangers and a small birthday cake, but something in the air had shifted. For the first time in a long while, Amelia no longer felt like the only person in the room. A week later, the town of Windermere lay under a silver-gray sky. In the middle of the main street, tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore, was a small studio. Inside, the scent of damp wood mingled with a faint trace of lavender, and the sound of brushes gliding over canvas blended with the gentle notes of a piano. Amelia sat before an easel facing a blank canvas. Her left hand, now her dominant one, moved the brush slowly while her right hand rested motionless on her lap. This was her third session in a 6-week art therapy course, a place where people who had endured strokes, injuries, or other life-changing events came to rediscover skill and peace one stroke at a time. For Amelia, it wasn't just about learning to paint. It was about learning to be patient with herself. She dipped her brush into pale blue and drew a horizontal line. The stroke trembled slightly uneven. Her instructor had once said, "Beauty lies in the effort." She wanted to believe that. The bell above the door chimed and a young voice rang out, "Dad, it's her!" Amelia looked up. Standing in the doorway was Ava, waving enthusiastically. Behind her was the man Noah, if she remembered correctly, from the birthday, wearing a slightly awkward smile and offering a polite nod. Amelia felt a small tightening in her chest, not from anxiety, but from a strange sensation that felt almost like relief. Noah spoke briefly to the receptionist while Ava skipped off toward the children's classroom next door. A few minutes later, he appeared beside her table. "Didn't know you came here, too," he said, his voice low and unhurried. Amelia looked up, her smile slow. "I didn't think I'd run into you either." He nodded toward the canvas. "Looks better than anything I could paint." She laughed. "It's just a mess of abstract colors, but thank you." They stood together in a short, easy silence, one that didn't feel awkward. He didn't ask about the wheelchair, didn't give her that look of pity. He just stood there as if this were simply a chance meeting. And somehow that made it easier to breathe. That weekend, rain came to Windermere without warning. Cold drops lashed against the pavement, blurring the rows of shops into watercolor smudges. When class ended, Amelia paused her wheelchair at the door, staring out at the curtain of white. The road home was uneven, scattered with loose stones and slick with rain. She hesitated, her fingers tightening slightly on the armrest. Then a figure appeared beside her, raising a black umbrella large enough to shelter them both. Noah. He said nothing more. One hand held the umbrella, the other lightly gripped the wheelchair's handle, pushing her forward in slow, steady steps. The rain drummed against the fabric above, while the soft hum of the wheels blended with the sound of his footsteps. Amelia didn't give directions, yet he brought her to the right building, turning at each corner as if he'd memorized the way. At the shelter of the awning, he closed the umbrella, letting the water stream off before looking at her. "You okay?" Amelia nodded. He only smiled, then quietly turned away, his figure dissolving into the rain. That night, as she prepared to make tea, Amelia noticed a small cardboard box on the table near her easel. Inside was a golden lemon tart identical to the one Ava had ordered for her on her birthday. On the lid lay a note, the handwriting neat and deliberate, "Always cheering you on. N." She stood still for a long moment, feeling something soften in her chest. It had been so long since she'd felt truly seen, not as the CEO's disabled daughter, not as a tragic story, but simply as Amelia. In the weeks that followed, Amelia and Noah began running into each other more often. Never planned, but often enough that it felt as though the small town itself was conspiring to bring them together. Sometimes it was at the corner cafe where Amelia liked to sit and paint, and Noah would arrive with a mocha for her because it's colder than usual today. Sometimes it was at the bookstore where they found themselves side by side in the children's section, Ava absorbed in picking out a story, while they laughed quietly after both reaching for the same book. Each time they met, their conversations stayed on small, simple things: the weather, the new paint on the shop across the street, or the best tea for the season. Yet when they parted, there was always something warm left lingering between them, lasting longer than any goodbye. One chilly afternoon, Amelia sat at her usual table in the cafe, her palette and brushes laid out in front of her. She was mixing teal with yellow, experimenting with a new shade, when Noah walked in carrying 2 steaming drinks. He set one in front of her. "Tea probably isn't enough for today," he said, his voice as light as a smile. Amelia wrapped her hands around the cup, feeling the heat seep into her palms. That's thoughtful of you. Thank you. His eyes drifted over her painting. A new piece. Not the best thing I've ever painted, she said with a slight shrug. But definitely honest, he replied. And that's what matters. The words made her pause. In that moment, Amelia realized around Noah she didn't have to be perfect to be valued. Amelia's smile faded slightly. She turned the cup in her hands, her eyes settling on a patch of wet paint on the canvas. There are days, she said slowly, when it's hard to feel like I have control over anything. My life used to be clear. I knew where I was going, what I was doing. Then, one day, it all collapsed. Noah nodded, his gaze steady and attentive. I know that feeling. Before Ava's mom got sick, I was head chef at a high-end restaurant. When she was diagnosed with cancer, I gave it all up. After she passed, I had to raise Ava alone. She was only 2. Amelia looked up, her eyes a mix of sorrow and admiration. You've lost so much. Yeah. He exhaled, then continued quietly. But it taught me to slow down. I used to think I had to be everything all at once. Then I realized Ava just needed me to be there. Amelia's fingers tightened around her brush. 2 years ago, I climbed Bear's Peak alone. It was supposed to be a celebration. I slipped. The fall, the surgery, and then paralysis. When I came home, my mom was gone. I chose to go alone, and I paid for it. Noah didn't interrupt. He simply stayed there, present, his quietness like an anchor in rough water. Finally, he said softly, I'm sorry. She met his eyes. What I find strange is, you don't pity me. His voice was certain. I don't pity you. I admire you. A meaningful silence settled between them. For the first time in so long, Amelia felt truly seen, not through the wheelchair, not through the Blake name, but simply as Amelia. The following weekend, Amelia arrived at her therapy class with a different frame of mind. Instead of wheeling herself to her usual corner, she chose a table by the window where the afternoon light stretched across the canvas. She began painting a mountain range, soft lines brushed in golden hues, like dawn touching something that had once been broken. When class ended, Noah was waiting under the awning, an umbrella in hand. He nodded toward the building. Ava's still in class, but I thought, you might want to get home dry. Amelia was a little surprised, but she smiled. I suppose I won't say no to that. They didn't speak much on the way back. The sound of rain on the umbrella and the rhythm of the wheelchair wheels blended together like the quiet background music to something warm. That night, Amelia looked at the painting she'd made. The lines still wavered, but they carried something new. Not salvation, not a miracle, but the feeling of a beginning. Like a hand reaching out in the rain, and for now, that was enough. From then on, their encounters became as natural as breathing. Morning coffee at the corner cafe, a few minutes of conversation in the bookstore, or an afternoon sharing a table in the art studio. Each time they parted with a little warmth that lingered long after. One evening, as Noah drove her home, Amelia looked out through the car window, watching small snowflakes swirl in the glow of the street lamps. She said quietly, "It still hurts, but it doesn't define me anymore." Noah glanced over his eyes, warm like firelight in the winter dark. He placed his hand over hers, giving it a gentle squeeze. No more words, just a silence full of meaning. Then they kissed light as an unspoken promise. No rush, no drama, just the simple acknowledgement that here between them was something worth holding on to. A few days later, Amelia's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She glanced at the screen. The headline was impossible to miss: tech billionaire's disabled daughter spotted hiding out in small cafe. Beneath it was a blurry, candid photo Amelia in her wheelchair wearing a faint smile, the cafe window behind her. The caption read coldly, "Her father, billionaire James Blake, is believed to be keeping his daughter away from the public eye." Her throat tightened. Her breathing quickened, a cold wave crashing through her chest. The nausea and sense of betrayal cut deeper than the fall 2 years ago. She shut off her phone, deleted the app, and let the sound of doorbells and knocking fade unanswered outside. For 2 days, she disappeared from the world. No art class, no cafe, no replies to messages. Lisa stopped by once, leaving behind a stuffed bear and a small note. "Get well soon. Love, Ava." On the third night, close to midnight, there was a soft knock at her door. When Amelia opened it, Noah stood there, not with bodyguards or a barrage of questions, but with an umbrella and a cup of hot tea. He stepped inside, set the umbrella in the corner, and placed the tea on the table. Amelia said nothing, curling into her blanket. The scent of lemon and the rising warmth from the cup filled the air. Noah sat in the chair beside her. No questions, no pressure. Just presence. Outside, the snow had stopped falling. Inside, her breathing began to slow. They stayed like that, letting the silence say everything. When Amelia woke at 4 a.m, Noah was still there asleep in the chair, the blanket neatly over his lap, the tea now cold, still in his hand. She looked at him for a long moment, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. "You stayed," she whispered. Noah's eyes opened, his voice rough with sleep. "That's what people do, when they care." The words touched something deep within her, a place frozen since her mother's death. Amelia reached out and gently touched his hand, not to say thank you, but to keep him there, and to keep herself. One Sunday afternoon, the cafe where Amelia often painted felt suddenly different. The light from the door brightened as it swung open, and James Blake stepped inside. No bodyguards, no assistants. Yet he still carried that air of authority, tailored suit, a folder in hand, and eyes that seemed to assess the value of everything in the room. He spotted Amelia first. His gaze softened briefly, then quickly returned to its usual sternness. Walking toward her table, his eyes flicked to the corner of the cafe where Ava sat coloring, and Noah stood nearby. "Is that the child the press says you're often seen with?" His voice was even edged with coolness. Amelia looked up, her tone measured. "That's Ava, a little girl who loves sweets and has an incredible imagination." James frowned. "You shouldn't be associating with people from another social tier." The air around them seemed to tighten. Amelia set her brush down, her eyes steady. "He's more genuine than any executive you've ever introduced to me. He didn't judge me when I fell. He just stayed." James's jaw clenched. He took a slow breath, then turned and walked out, leaving behind a heavy silence. Amelia watched him go, her chest weighted. But when she turned back, Ava was beaming proudly, holding up a page filled with bright colors. In that moment, Amelia knew she had already made her choice, and it wasn't her father's. In the days that followed, Amelia all but lived in the little cafe's painting corner. In the mornings, soft sunlight streamed through the window, spilling over the blank canvas. In the afternoons, the warm gold of the overhead lights washed over the wooden table where she mixed colors and pulled the brush in slow, steady strokes. One canvas after another, Amelia began letting her fear of imperfection fall away in each layer of paint. A gold candlestick beside a chipped wooden chair. A little girl drawing a heart on a sugar cookie. A rainy street corner with 2 figures sharing a single umbrella. Every piece bore her new signature, Amelia Millie Blake. Noah often stopped by, rarely saying much. He would stand quietly in the corner watching, and only come closer when invited. "They're very honest," he would say. Amelia brushed a loose strand of hair from her forehead and smiled. "That's because I'm not afraid of imperfections anymore." One afternoon, Ava came running up and handed Amelia a gingerbread cookie decorated with candy in the shape of a heart. "For you, because you're very brave." Amelia's eyes blurred. She didn't try to hide the fragility in her expression from Noah. She just whispered, "I think I can do it now." He simply placed a warm cup of tea in her hands. No more words needed. On a clear morning, Amelia wheeled herself into the craft room at the community center near the cafe. The tables and chairs were arranged in a circle with colored paper, watercolors, brushes, and cups of clean water laid out neatly. Laughter from children echoed down the hallway. Noah was setting up chairs while Ava helped him arrange jars of paint. He looked up when he saw her. "Morning. Is the new teacher ready?" Amelia laughed. "Thanks for helping. Just want to make things easier for you," he said. The children began filing in, some in wheelchairs, some on crutches, some with a helper at their side. Amelia greeted each one with a smile. "I'm Millie," she introduced herself. Their eyes lit up, not with pity, but with curiosity and excitement. Ava darted around the room, picking up dropped brushes and wiping up spilled water. Watching her, Amelia felt warmth blooming in her chest. That afternoon after class, Amelia and Ava sat side by side at the cafe painting hearts, mountains, and sunflowers with uneven petals. Noah brought tea for both of them. When they laughed over a smeared picture, Amelia's and Noah's fingers brushed on the tabletop, a quick, unmistakable spark of warmth. That evening, as Noah drove Amelia home, tiny snowflakes swirled in the glow of the streetlights outside. In the quiet, she said softly, "It still hurts. But it doesn't define me anymore." Noah didn't take his eyes off her as his warm hand closed over hers, giving it a gentle squeeze. The moment felt apart from the rest of the world, just the two of them, and an understanding that needed no words. Then they kissed. Not rushed, not staged. Just a soft kiss, like a single thread tying together two souls learning to believe in happiness again. One quiet afternoon, Amelia found a small canvas tucked away in the corner of the studio. She began with soft pastel blues for the mountain range, then added the golden pink glow of a rising sun behind it. At the edge of the painting, she sketched two figures, one tall, one small, standing side by side, brushes in hand beneath a wide open sky. In the bottom corner, she signed it, "Beauty lives in the thread that binds the ones you choose." The following Sunday, she brought the painting to the cafe. When Noah and Ava walked in, they stopped in their tracks. The canvas hung on the wall right above their usual table next to the wooden frame Noah had once given her, the one engraved with the words, "Beauty isn't in symmetry, but in sincerity." Noah looked at it for a long time, as if reading a language only the two of them could understand. His eyes moved slowly from the imperfect brushstrokes to the words beneath. Ava ran over, pointing excitedly. "That's us." Amelia only smiled, needing no explanation. She knew both Noah and Ava understood the painting wasn't just a gift. It was a thank you and a promise. A week later, the cafe where it had all begun was strung with pastel ribbons and warm golden lights. The tables were arranged in a circle, leaving an open space in the center for a cake covered in soft white frosting. Across its surface, written in careful lettering, were the words, "For Ava and the bravest woman I know." Beside it sat the familiar wooden frame with its engraved quote and a small painting Amelia had made, two hands clasped beneath an umbrella in the rain. Ava wore a sky-blue dress with a flower bow in her hair, bouncing on her toes. "This is going to be the best birthday ever." Amelia wheeled herself over her blonde hair, neatly pinned up her face, radiant yet peaceful. Noah stood beside her, his hand resting gently on the armrest of her chair. The cafe was full of familiar faces, parents from Ava's school, her art therapy teacher, even the barista who had quietly lit candles for Amelia the year before. Ava climbed onto a chair and took the microphone. "Millie and Dad. Noah, thank you for making me brave." The cafe erupted in applause. Then the door opened. James Blake walked in, no bodyguards, no phone, just a small velvet box in his hand. He paused for a moment, then stepped forward until he stood before Amelia. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice slow and low. "I was wrong. Wrong for not being there when you needed me most. I was afraid." I didn't know how to help. So I ran. And I'm sorry. Amelia blinked, wondering if she had heard him correctly, but his eyes were steady, genuine. Ava's clear voice rose in song, "Happy birthday," ending with "Happy birthday to the family I chose." Noah wrapped his arms around both Amelia and Ava. James placed a hand on Noah's shoulder, then took Amelia's hand. "I understand now. This is what real love looks like." Applause swelled once more through the cafe. Amelia drew in a deep breath. For the first time in years, she felt whole, not because life had gone back to what it was, but because she had chosen her family. That day, the elementary school auditorium was a burst of color. Paper butterflies dangled from the ceiling, swaying gently in the breeze from the old air conditioner. Folding chairs creaked under the weight of parents eagerly waiting to see their children take the stage. Amelia sat in the front row, cradling a bouquet of wildflowers Ava had given her. She wore a pale blue dress Ava had chosen herself, her blonde hair braided loosely to one side. Noah sat beside her, his hand holding hers. Lisa, now as close as a younger sister, sat on her other side, wearing a handmade friendship bracelet. The performances were lively and sweet. Ava, dressed in a sparkly bee costume, delivered her 2 solo lines with such seriousness that the entire room erupted in laughter. When the final song ended, applause thundered through the hall, but instead of leaving the stage, Ava stepped up to the microphone. Her bee wings trembled slightly, and her eyes shone bright. "I have something more important than the song," Ava said clearly. "Can my family come up here, please?" Noah raised an eyebrow. Amelia's eyes widened, but before either could respond, the teacher gestured for them to join her. Noah helped Amelia onto the stage with Lisa trotting behind. Ava stepped forward, holding out a small velvet box. "Mama Millie, will you marry Daddy Noah?" The audience gasped. Amelia covered her mouth, her heart pounding. Noah let out a sheepish laugh. "I had a different plan for this, but she beat me to it." Laughter rippled through the hall. Noah took the box from Ava, knelt down, and opened it to reveal a simple silver ring with a small diamond that caught the light. His eyes, sincere, steady, full of hope, made Amelia's throat tighten. "Yes," she said then, with more strength. "Yes, because you don't complete me. You remind me I was already whole." The applause roared. Ava jumped up and down. Lisa threw her arms around them. Noah rose and slipped the ring onto Amelia's finger. She touched his cheek, their eyes meeting in a wordless promise. That night, after the auditorium had emptied, the paper butterflies taken down, and the folding chairs stacked away, they found a quiet spot on the back steps of the school. Ava had fallen asleep in Noah's arms, worn out from the excitement. Lisa leaned against Amelia's shoulder, softly humming a tune without a name. Amelia watched the streetlight spill through the bare branches of the trees. Her voice was low but steady. "I used to think I was just an unfinished story. Now I know. I was only waiting for the right chapter." Noah pressed a gentle kiss to her temple. "Then let's write it slowly, word by word, page by page." The night breeze carried the scent of melting snow. Overhead, the Windmere sky glittered with stars. They sat there silent, but far from empty. With Ava breathing evenly in her father's arms, Lisa smiling faintly beside her, and Noah's hand wrapped around hers, Amelia realized love hadn't saved her. But it had reminded her she was worth saving. A warm light had found its way in, not bright, not loud, but steady, like a small lamp still burning in the heart, guiding her through the coldest days. And Amelia knew that from now on, she would never walk alone again.